Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you all to the ESOC cast for this match between Knuschelbär and Pérez, part of the round of 32 of the ESOC WarChiefs Classic. And so we will be launching right away into game one here. It's going to be a best of 5 series. Map 1 is, of course, ESOC Arkansas for the round of 32. Next maps after this game will be 2 times ESOC Colorado for games 2 and 3, and then ESOC Great Basin for games 4 and 5, should it go to that. But of course we do have our match today between Knuschelbär and Pérez, and I think most players by now should be familiar with Knuschelbär. He's always been around and, by most measures a top player. But as far as mainline ESOC tournament success, it has kind of eluded Knusch for the most part, speaking to, the seasonal major tournaments, that is. However, he's kind of proven himself, not only in the weekend tournaments, but also in the most recent ESOC Premier League. Certainly earned a good name for himself, winning series against other top 5 players such as Lord Raphael, Kaiser Klein, rushing. I don't even want to mention the one game where the one series where he won 5-0, but it was very, very convincing. Knuschelbär definitely established himself as a threat, as well being one of the best team players, one of the best active team players, the winner 2v2 invitational tournament with partner has a 5-4-3-2-1. They won the finals against Vini Vidivici and Cometk, legendary players. And they won that series 4-0, so, that just speaks to the ability of Knuschelbär, not only in 1v1, but as well in team. On the other hand, we see Knuschelbär starting with a trade post. On the other hand, we see Pérez, who may not be as popular or as much of a staple name, but is still a very strong player in his own right. Where Knuschelbär sort of sits at brigadier level, you can kind of expect Pérez to play at lieutenant colonel level, but I don't think that should be a dissuasion to root for him here. I think in the past few weeks, he's kind of proven himself. He came back from a little bit of a hiatus for a few months, but he's been proving himself on ladder, and I think he does prove to be a threat, and he's somebody to look out for. I do think we should see some good games, and at the very least, I think Pérez had a good attitude going into it. At the very least, hoping for some funny games, so let's hope we see that. Perhaps some Aztec FIs versus Sioux, that would be interesting to see, even if it weren't successful. But it is the Sioux versus Aztec matchup. Knuschelbär is going to be playing in the color green to the west side of the map. He is the Sioux. And Pérez, our underdog for the evening, he's playing in the color blue. Wait, did I already mention that? Anyway, to the east side of the map, he's the Aztecs. As far as this matchup goes, I would hazard a guess that it's going to be a little bit Sioux favored, not only because Knuschelbär is the favored player overall, but just because it can be very difficult for the Aztec units in Colonial Age to break the main base of the Sioux player with just a single war hut and the TPs. They have excellent defensive posturing, which kind of renders any aggressive play from the Aztec player a little bit of a question mark. And even going into the mid and late stages of the game, I feel like Sioux's units just scale so much better than the Aztec ones do, unless the Aztec player is just able to exercise on a great mistake that the Sioux player has made in the early game. Still, doesn't seem like that's going to be the case in this game, seeing as the Aztec Explorer is liable to go down trying to pull trick with the Warrior Priest, but the Warrior Priest was a little bit too close. It seems like he's going to lose the Explorer, but it's going to be right by his town center. In fact, just going up to Colonial Age, so this Aztec Explorer is going to be greatly buffed for gaining a lot of hit points there. Of course, he did lose a lot of hit points, so he's got a lot to heal. Wants to get back to full health to be of good use in the Colonial Age engagements, but that's all right, as long as he preserves his Explorer and prevents his opponent from getting the 100 experience points that he would have gotten killing it. I think that's a win in and of itself. But we did see Pérez going up with the Aztec Age Up Fast option to Colonial, kind of the standard choice, which kind of it doesn't give us that much information. For example, if Pérez has gone with a slow age up, that might incline us to think that he's going to go for something like a semi-fast fortress or a fast fortress build order, so that he could preserve the fast age up when he's going up to fortress age for better effect. Knuschelbär, on the other hand, it seems like he's probably going to go for the 400 wood politician. Again, standard, so we can't really divine too much information from that. But we see 3 TPs in base, and we did see, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, Knuschelbär got that early trading post, which is going to be so good for him. Wondering, did he get an early wood treasure, or did he just gather for that? And it seems like Knuschelbär actually straight up gathered the wood for the trading post. So he started with a 100 wood crate and then gathered 100 wood to get that early trading post. That's going to do wonders for him. He did age up quite slow, but we do see the war hut coming up and no aggression coming out for Pérez. We actually see a defensive war hut for him, which is kind of interesting at the, you know. I say that's interesting because, you know, Aztec is usually not the defensive civilization in this matchup. But depending on what Pérez's planned build order is, you know, he could be going for something very economic. He just wants to keep it safe in base. No reason to overextend yourself when you're not going to be making units early, and, you know, expose yourself to a potential colonial timing push from the Sioux. Big treasure pickup for Knuschelbär here. 235 coin is pretty insane, especially with getting a converted Pirate Guardian out of that too. We see 5 Pikemans coming out, which is going to counter an early potential for, you know, 5 Axe Riders coming in just to pressure Pérez's base. But it seems like Pérez is maybe recognized. Okay. So I was saying maybe he's going to recognize that pressure isn't actually going to come out from Knuschelbär, and he was going to send the pikes over to this trading post to take it. But at the very least, he's going to get this one, going to pressure it down and prevent Knuschelbär from taking the second trading post there. Of note, both players started with 700 wood as their first shipment in the colonial age. Of course, because Knuschelbär started with the war hut and not a stable, 5 trained Seton bows popping out, and that's actually going to secure him the... Ooh, be careful! Oh! So many hit points lost on that. Oh, there he goes. The War Chief Explorer is gone, but the five Seton bows will be enough to push these Puma Spearmen of the Aztec player away. Although with 5 Mace Walton reinforcing, I don't entirely know that 5 Mace Walton will beat 5 Seton bows, especially now that they've been buffed on the ESOC patch. They have 100 hit points. Pretty nice. 30% range. So pretty nice. Oh, Mace Waltons also have 30%, but they have a lower attack as well for hit points. But all in all, it seems passive gameplay from both players. Pérez, I'd like to see him ship 5 Vills, perhaps. It seems like he's going for a very economic playstyle here. 700 for Warrior Priest, 600. Not dancing for Warrior Priest at the moment. He's probably just on the experience dance and trying to expedite his card order. 10 Mace Waltons. So it seems like he is going to go for an economic timing push. He's got a lot of Puma Spearmans out on the field, and now he has 15 Mace Walton. But we see 700 coin coming out for Knuschelbär, and with a very defensive posture and with these TPs, plenty with which to, you know, ward off any colonial pressure of the Aztec player with these 10 Seton bows. Now on the way to age up with Age Up Fast Politician. He's going to be there in no time. And in no time, he's going to be having some Fortress Age units out on the field, whether that be some Wakina popping out here. I wouldn't expect Rifle Riders, because while they perform pretty well against the Puma Spearmen, they don't perform pretty well against these Mid-Walton. So I wouldn't expect some early cavalry necessarily, unless it was like a 5 Axe Rider shipment, because, you know, Knuschelbär would probably want to first invest in getting the veteran upgrade, but we do see just enough Mace Waltons on the field to one-shot these Seton bows, and I don't entirely know that they're all in range of the TPs here, and these TPs are getting taken down really quickly by the Puma Spearmen. A lot of the Seton bows being melted, but a lot of the Mace Waltons going down as well. Most of the Satan bows cleaned up, and now the Puma Spearmen are focusing down the town center. Still, even if Knuschelbär loses the town center, he's going to have another shipment point with the War Hut. We see the Sioux Explorer coming back in now. It's actually going to do really well against these Mistwalton, but most of the Seton bows have been cleaned up. 2 Puma Spearmen popping out, some Wakinas, and Pérez is going to choose to go back, although reinforcing Pumas. He stopped sieging the town center. It's about halfway health. But snared. Taking down almost one of those Axe Riders. Pretty good. I like the micro from Pérez so far. Well, it's still precarious, but I think, you know, Pérez, he has to make something of this this little push of his. I don't think he can, you know, just afford to go back and... as far as his game plan for how this is going to pan out in early Fortress against Knuschelbär, you know, he can't keep losing units for free like he is doing here. You know, he's getting snared by just the Sioux Explorer and a single Axe Rider. He's lost 7 Puma Spearmen so far for minimal effect against Knuschelbär's units. He's focus firing down the Axe Rider with his Mistwalton now, but the range backing of the Sioux player is getting in really, really good damage, really great value. And, you know, the range backing, you know, while these Wakinas are pretty vulnerable to a Cav type unit, Pérez does not have a lot of Coyote runners on the field. He's only got 5, just popped 5 now, but I don't entirely know that that's enough to snare these Wakina, especially with the Sioux Explorer nearby to grant them some additional speed. You're reinforcing units, Axe Riders, and the veteran upgrade for the Axe Riders is also coming in. 5 Axe Rider shipment for the Sioux player, and with 5 Coyotes now reinforcing. The Aztec forces are disjointed though. I don't know that these Coyote runners are going to be of great effect with the reinforcing cavalry. Knuschelbär, good micro, focusing down the Puma Spearmen. Most of the Coyote runners taken down, but there are 10 more now reinforcing, and it could stand for Knuschelbär to lose all of his units here. Oh, the units, they're just so disconnected from Knuschelbär, and that's one thing I don't like. Now we see all of the Puma Spearmen being taken down. A lot of Sioux cavalry reinforcing to match these Coyote runners. A lot of them getting taken down. The Mistwalton now focus firing down the Wakinas, but they don't one-shot a Wakina. Now the Coyote runners dancing awkwardly around this trading post socket. You know, while I think Pérez is going to clean up this engagement, I don't think it was a crushing fight that he kind of needed to, you know, establish an advantage for himself, being an age down. That was basically an even engagement. You know, they both traded evenly. And, you know, just take a look at the economic unit population. There's not a huge disparity. So Knuschelbär basically gets up with a better economy. He has a technology advantage, way stronger units, and he's not really under a great degree of pressure. So I think because Pérez kind of traded evenly there, didn't take a crushing engagement, he's in a pretty happy position. Knuschelbär, that is, speaking of. We do see the Aztec Explorer being revived in Pérez's base, some Coyote runners coming in for a raid. I don't think they caught a villager, though. Actually going to get snared by the Axe Riders, but going to engage a little bit. They're not choosing to commit. 5 Rifle Riders in the back. I really like that from Knuschelbär here. That's a huge value shipment, and it's going to do really well against both Coyote runners and Puma Spearmen. And now that Knuschelbär knows that he's cleaned up the Mistwalton mass from the Aztec player, you know, he's just sitting comfortable with those those Rifle Riders. There's barely going to be any counter unit for them that the Aztec player can mass quickly. Now coming in, catching a villager. It's like one is going to go down, potentially 2. Oh, just misfired barely. There was a very low HP villager, but Knuschelbär clicked on the wrong one to snipe it down with his Rifle Rider. Still okay. I mean, he's forcing a lot of the villagers of Pérez into the TC, and when you're up with a tech and a slight eco advantage, you're always pretty happy about that. Even a single Seton bow actually pressuring the villagers of Pérez to the north side of the map. And now all of the Sioux units converging on that point. That stands to represent a 5-villager raid for Knuschelbär. He's getting caught a little bit by the Aztec units. Seems like they are going to save the villagers. But he's forced into an engagement here, and I don't know that it's going to be really great for him. Especially with the Aztec Explorer still there. Now using the Rifle Riders, and oh my god, just these volleys from the Wakinas, the Rifle Riders, on the Puma Spearmen and the Coyote Runners, taking them down so quickly. Pérez did a good job to focus fire down the Rifle Riders with his Mace Walton, but now he stands to lose his entire military mass. Good micro from both players, but it's just strategically not going to be enough from the Aztec player. Now we see basically most of the Aztec forces being cleaned up. Now simply resorting to gathering from berries next to his town center, chopping a lot of wood, of which there isn't great effect, and even Knuschelbär stacking a lot of coin. And I think, yeah, he just sent the shipment for the Santi support, which is going to give him 6 Axe Riders as well as a 20% hit point buff to those Axe Riders. Not a shipment you commonly see sent in Supremacy games, but, you know, the distribution called for it, and Knuschelbär is going to get that permanent upgrade for his Axe Riders just about 40 seconds. However, I think the game has mostly been decided. You know, I shouldn't call it earlier. I shouldn't call it early. You know, Pérez is still in it to win it. Still going to give it his all, but at some point there are, you know, the longer the game goes from this position, the fewer options you have as the Aztec player. And myself as the caster, I struggle to see what he could possibly do to bring himself back into this game. But still, there is value in playing the games out. For one, it can tilt your opponent, as is the example in the classic case of Kaiserklein versus I Am Turk. By just overstaying your welcome a little bit, you can usually tilt your opponent, get a little bit of a better trade, and later on in the series, after they've exhausted their efforts to win as convincingly as possible in every single game. As well, it gives you some more time to think about your strategy going into the next games of the series. So there's always value in playing out your games. The last village. Can't fault Pérez for that. Sioux forces just dancing around the town center of Pérez, taking down some of these exposed houses. And in fact, Pérez is actually pop capped 73 out of 70, if I'm reading that correctly. But basically, Knuschelbär has gone for the contain game plan. He knows that Pérez... Oh, big raid here. It's going to be GG called by Pérez. So the first game will go to Knuschelbär in this best of 5 series. Not totally unexpected, but I don't think Pérez played it terribly. I think mechanically he played it well. Strategically and in executing on the strategy that he eventually went for, I think there were a few flaws. For one, let's just take a look at the timing push that he went for in early Fortress against Knuschelbär. Let's take a look at the military unit population. You can see Knuschelbär, you know, he did lose a lot of villagers there, and Pérez didn't lose a lot. So while that, you know, kind of panned out pretty well for him, he lost some units in the retreat, but was able to reinforce and took a pretty okay engagement. You know, this does look good from just an agnostic standpoint. If you look at this military graph, they're trading evenly, but at the end of it, Pérez is coming away with more military. But this wasn't the engagement that he needed. He didn't need an engagement where both players lose the same amount of units. Because at the end of it, Knuschelbär is coming out with basically the same economy and a tech advantage because he's in Age 3. And so the reinforce from Pérez was not so spectacular, and the reinforce from Knuschelbär with his Age 3 shipments, among other things, was pretty good. And then you see, working that tech advantage, he takes a really nice engagement. And from there, it's just Pérez is on his deathbed. That'll be the game. That's game 1. It is a best of 5 series. There's still 2 left, at least 2 left. bank for our players. I think I will be joined by Riotcoke at the moment, so let's get that all set up. I hope my sound settings are good. Of course, I didn't set up to Cocast. Let's see. I'm gonna hop in the Discord voice. What's up, buddy? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Just give me 1 moment.
Cool. So you're a little bit quiet for me.
I can turn my mic up if you would like me to.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Is that better?
A little bit better. I think I'll turn you up a little bit on my side.
Yeah, that might help even more so. Because if I turn it up too much, it'll start being a bit shit.
Yeah, it'll get out of whack, I understand. Let me see here. Okay, I think it should be good now.
Okay, there you go. There's my voice. It should be fine. How was the first game? Was I only caught the end of it?
I think it wasn't, uh, I think Pérez mechanically played it well. But strategically and the execution of his strategy, I don't think his strategy was all that great for this particular matchup. And in executing on it, while he did get a good early fortress pressure, by being forced to go back, he kind of threw away any advantage he might have ever gotten. So that kind of consequentially led him to a loss because he had a worse strategy. So I think it was a good game. I liked what I saw from Pérez, but we'll have to see how he carries that into the next few games.
Yeah, and obviously Perez has to choose a native civ now. More than likely he's going to choose Aztec again, as I know Perez basically loves Aztec. And this is actually a really good matchup for him.
Oh,
Japan
wow.
Aztec is. I think that's a mistake from Knuschelbär to go to Japan here because he knows Perez is quite good with Aztec. Obviously, he just played them, and Su Aztec is a pretty awful matchup for Aztec. So, yeah, I mean, I think Perez would be happy about this.
Yeah, that's definitely right. Pérez has been practicing Aztec a lot. I'm not entirely sure what his stance is with Iroquois and Sioux, but Aztec is definitely something he's gonna be comfortable with, especially with this matchup. I think we saw, I forget who it was, the only boss versus Noel. The only boss took Aztec versus Noel's Japan lock, and he consequently lost. So it's not an impossible matchup for the Japanese. But I think in general, it's just a pretty Aztec favored matchup. So pretty happy to see Perez taking Aztec here, or at least Knuschelbär making the play to take Japan.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, if Perez wins this, it is a best of 5. So Perez will then go 1-1 and then both players will basically do a best of 3 after that. And really, I think the advantage here is to the player who picks first. Normally, it'd be the advantage player who counter picks. But if Perez can take this game, it means he can pick a European civ, which he might be slightly better at. And Lushabar, I don't know how good he is at other civs that aren't Sue. So maybe Perez can use this leverage when he's sort of been given a gifted for Japan versus Aztec, as you said, maybe a bit of a harder matchup for Japan. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's a really interesting tempo dance with the civ picking rules of the WarChiefs Classic. So, of course, the winner of the first game is going to lock any civilization first, going into the second game, and then his opponent will counterpick with any one of the 3 WarChief civilizations. It's supposed to be a slight advantage to the loser of game 1, i.e., the player that is counterpicking. But of course, with that limited selection, it can be kind of wishy-washy depending on how practiced you are with the WarChief civilizations.
Yeah, exactly.
So as it goes into the later stages of the match, and they alternate between locking any civilization and counterpicking with the TWC civs. I think we'll talk more on it later, but it's interesting, and it's not supposed to give any particular player a huge advantage. It's supposed to be very slight, but anyway, we can delve more on that later.
Yeah, and I mean this game's already starting off now. 95 wood now is Yoshiba's going to pick up, and it was a coin start, but he's going to go for a consulate, which I think maybe a slight of a mistake here. Really, I mean we saw last time someone did this on this map, go for a consulate in a castle game was it was Lucas actually. Lucas is Kaiser. Kaiser went Germany and he went a consulate with a coin start. And it's so slow, especially even if you get that 95 wood, it's just so much slower than going for a normal build with Japan. And Aztec obviously are much faster. Perez is now getting up his market from the coin start, and he's also going to get up a house, which is quite nice. But Aztec just get the momentum here, and I think putting that consulate up it is a bit of a mistake.
I think, yeah, Perez is about to get. He picked up the 90 coin. He's still missing. There we go. He's got hunting dogs on queue just now. But yeah, like you said, Knuschelbär, he's probably going to go maybe a Heavenly Kami. We did see Noel in this same matchup yesterday going for that Heavenly Kami first shipment, which, like you mentioned, is kind of the unstandard build order nowadays, that defensive play style. Against Aztec, maybe it's not so bad because just the way that your units would perform if you did an aggressive build order in Colonial Age, it just might not come to your favor. For example, sending 5 Ashigaru and training 5 Ashigaru is going to do much if your opponent has a well-placed 10 Miss Walton shipment. So just going for that standard, or old standard, of the defensive playstyle, maybe that's just the way to play this matchup in particular. But yeah, Heavenly Kami is what we see first from Knuschelbär.
Yeah, and as you said, it isn't standard anymore, really. But he's going to pick it up with Clubman, which obviously is incredibly good against Aztec, because Aztec like going forward with a couple of settlers, or villagers even, and putting down a forward war hut. But with that nuclear on a map, it's quite hard for him really to do that, unless he can get a couple of those bears or walls which he can convert, and just pick him off that way.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that. That's especially going to compound with the fact that Knuschelbär is going for a defensive economic playstyle, just by preventing that early aggression, or the potential for early aggression at the very least. With that Nuka Clubman, it's going to do wonders for Knuschelbär's boom, supposing Pérez doesn't really make the best to counter that boom of Knuschelbär.
Yeah, and because of that consulate, actually, Knuschelbär's going to get up quicker than Perez. Normally, Aztec is going to go for the faster age up option, so he's going to be up faster. But that wonder going up ever so slightly faster is going to be quite good, actually. It's going to allow him to get something like 5 Ashi out quite quickly. And we just have to wait and see if he gets up the war hut, but I don't think he will. This Nuka is doing a huge amount of damage to the Aztec WarChief, who's down sort of pinned in base.
Yeah, we see this Clubman going at it. Now with the town center fire, so that Clubman is not long for this world, but still, I think whatever build order Pérez is committed to, it seems like it's not going to be an aggressive one. We do see 2 villagers coming forward, but if they're going to be building a forward war hut, it's going to be really, really slow. We see it's already the 4-minute mark, no war hut in place, and not even the wood to build one.
Yeah, he does. He's going to send 700 wood straight away. Obviously, I think that's just standard for Aztec. Although saying that he is actually over popped, so maybe he sent something like 5 settlers or 3. Maybe it's 3 warrior priests. Although I think warrior priests are 2 population each, aren't they? Yeah, but actually no, he just sent 3 warrior priests, so he's just going to collect the wood normally and then get the wall up. But as you said, it's a lot slower and it's allowing Knuschelbär to get this wall up.
Yeah, so we do see Pérez placing the war hut just now. But it's going to be quite slow. Knuschelbär is up himself now, and the walls are starting to be... it's not
It is 700 wood.
Not a full wall, technically, from Bar with these... there's an entryway among these trees for Pérez, although I think Knuschelbär recognizes that and is kind of happy if the Aztec player is, walking around these trees. That probably serves well for Yuumi DPS if the Aztec units are getting caught up in a retreat. Trees, but regardless.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Perez is just really slow here. 700 wood coming in, probably the first shipment you always expect as Aztec. Maybe 3 war priests, but you just need that wood as Aztec just to get units out. And that war hut is also spotted by that shrine, so he knows where it is. He's going to know what shipments he end up getting. And at the end of the day, if Knuschelbär can get a decent amount of shrines out and get a barracks out at the same time, he's just going to be fine.
Right, so we do see the barracks coming out now. And so it seems like standard fare for Knuschelbär. He's just being allowed to go with his game plan, which is shrine up around the map. You can even see Villager for Pérez trying to herd in that hunt. Very far hunt. I'm not sure why you would go for that one necessarily, but either way, the shrine going up right next to it going to give him plenty of line of sight for future raids. Uh, and Knuschelbär, I mean, let's see. Is there any units in queue for Pérez? Yes, we do see some pikemen as well as some coyotes in queue.
Yeah, so Kite and Puma. Puma's obviously being insane actually versus these shrines. Each one doing like 48 damage, and the siege tag doesn't really affect them because obviously you're not going to call Minutemen out and just take them so far away from the base. But Nushibar does have Kami, and he does also have the Borschi Construct, so these shrines are really cheap. I mean, 120, I think. The Borschi Construct is 10%, isn't it, or 15% on wood, and Kami's like 20%. So these shrines are like 70 wood each, so they're not very expensive at all.
Absolutely. Although, with that said, they do grant a lot of experience points to the Aztec player. You just saw 144 experience points popping out from that one shrine there. That's a big economic buff to the Aztec player, but some Yumi's coming out, gonna snipe down some of the Puma Spearmen, but they are gonna get caught in a mishmash, a scorpion maneuver from the Aztec player with the Coyote Runners now engaging. Lots of experience points there. You love to see it.
Yeah, and that was 10 Mace Ult coming out. Obviously, Yumi's do just beat Mace Ult because of the range. They have 18 instead of 16, but obviously Mace Ult aren't too bad themselves at just firing down at units. And at the end of the day, with the Coyotes coming out now, Perez and Urushibar needs Ashes out. And Ashes versus Mace Ult doesn't really fare too well. So Lushabot doesn't have a mass at all here, really. He's only got 5 Yumis and probably a batch of 5 Ashes coming out, as I said. But there's eight coyotes in his base, and he's gonna have to call Minutemen now.
Oh wow, this
Oh,
pop could be insane.
Yes, that's incredible. Actually, that's the perfect timing. Really, obviously, you get the export from the age up, and yeah, it's actually pretty incredible. Is that 5? No, there's 300 export coming in. So he's not even got nearly enough to get Bestios again. So he's going to have 14 crossbows, and this sort of shuts down Perez's push here.
You know, something I would like to see from Perez, he has a sufficient mass of Coyote Runners and Mace Fulton at this point, and that's going to be enough to, you know, dance around the early mass from the Japanese player. He's not going to have any cavalry there to snare you. So with just those units, you know, while you might technically be vulnerable to cavalry, I'd be happy if Perez, you know, just sent his Puma Spearmen around the map to siege the shrines while he kind of skirted around the front base of Knuschelbär. Not necessarily taking an engagement or a fight, but just, you know, kind of keeping him secured in his base, maybe sending a few coyotes around the top like he is just now to scout around for that Japanese explorer and prevent it from, boom, placing down 3 shrines like we see just there. But still, that's what I'd like to see from Perez, and he is working on it a little bit. Yeah, we see some of the Puma Spearmen taking down a few shrines there, and a little bit disconnected. There are some Mace Walton, some coyotes scattered around the map. We'll have to see.
Yeah, if Perez sort of bunches up his army here and he takes an engagement against Nushibar, even with those Bestiaries out and maybe some more in queue, I mean, he's going to clean up here. Perez heading through trading post now, which honestly I think might be a bit of a mistake. 600 wood is actually a better shipment than that if you can just sort of get it in on the right time, because at the moment he's already taken 2 trading posts. Oh, he's actually didn't take one before. Yeah, it's actually okay. But again, if he gets one of his caught, he's going to lose basically 200 wood. He is now going to clean up some of his ashes if the explorer can just get a touch on them. I don't think he actually can. But I mean, Perez is doing well here, but again, look at the shrine population from Nushibar. It's 170, and the Kabi shrines are even slightly better.
Yeah, it's a little bit tenuous. You know, we see the Yumi mass from Knuschelbär now going back. You know, I think Knuschelbär, as we can see here, he's actually aging up. So these stall tactics with the the Ashigaru running around the map, I think as long as, you know, he's comfortable losing these units. It's not necessarily a good trade for him. But what it really represents is a strategical advantage. He's putting Perez on the back foot. Look at the placement of these units at the very back of his own main base. That is nowhere near the base of the Japanese player to, you know, apply pressure. And Knuschelbär is halfway up to the Fortress Age. And once he gets there, he's going to have so much in the way of upgrades, military upgrades for his units. And he's just basically going to gather up critical mass and have an unkillable army. And I think that's his goal here.
Yeah, and but basically, in my mind, if Perez pushes sort of has a timing push now, to have something like Coyote coming in. Look how many coyotes he has. Just look at military units here. Each one only representing one population. 25 coyotes, and there's only 7 ashes there. He's not on the Japanese consulate, who he actually is now. I didn't realize that, but he can get a couple of clubs out. But obviously, this is just a Yumi and crossbow mass, which just get demolished by the coyote mass if he can get into contact them. And once he sees the age up, he's just going to be pushing here, almost definitely.
Some more cheeky tactics. The War Chiefs now going down, and Perez now just putting his foot on the gas pedal. Gonna try to put on some pressure, but these walls are just forcing these units into such an awkward pathing. 2 cherry orchards coming and gonna be forced into a very awkward location, but I think Knuschelbär has enough units to.
Yeah, this positioning from Knuschelbär is actually pretty incredible. Obviously, if the Yumis are sort of in a choke, and they're now going to get disciplined Yumi, which just improves them even more so. They do quite good damage against them. And the 2 Clubbins coming in, they're just going to be doing damage without even getting hit themselves. And the Mace Holtons are too far away to do any damage to the Ashes, which is what they want to do here. And yeah, the Coyote Masters just died, and these Mace Holtons don't really square up to the Yumis at all, especially when you're about to see a shipment coming in from Knuschelbär.
Yeah, this was just not the engagement that Perez wanted. You know, a lot of the coyotes dealing some residual damage to the villagers that were being placed in the town center periodically. And basically, that was a lack of focus on the military units of Knuschelbär. So while they were getting ripped to pieces, the entire military backing for Knuschelbär was intact. And obviously, that led to the complete annihilation of the Aztec army. And so now, again, like we saw in Game 1, Perez is at a tech disadvantage, and he just did not take the crushing engagement that he needed to, render that technology disadvantage useless.
Exactly. And about saying that, Perez is actually ahead on eco, even with the calculated economic population. Because especially when you account for the TPs, if you can get Stagecoach in, he's handily ahead. And these shrines obviously are going to go down from the Pumas, and all of the units that Knuschelbär has are quite immobile, really. I mean, he's got an infantry army. The Conchas aren't going to be doing too much against anything which aren't coyotes. Although saying that he is going to pick up a couple of Puma Spearmen on the right here, on the left here even, with a couple of Ashes maybe. But more and more shrines are just going to go down for Knuschelbär.
Just really love the main base, like all of these buildings of the Japanese player. It gives him a lot of line of sight, a lot of defensive posturing. Now another town center going up, which is going to bolster. Like you said, while the economies are technically actually the same at the moment, the 2 town center boom from Knuschelbär is going to set Knuschelbär back in the lead eventually, at some point in time. But
Yeah, and I think one mistake Perez has got here is he's sending all these shipments, like 6 Puma Spearmen, and really he needs to age now. Because, as you said, Japanese units are just so much better now. Even just look at the Conchas compared to the Pumas. The Conchas themselves, basically being true units from the consulate, are just superior to Pumas in every regard. And that Yumi mass and crossbow mass is just insane at this point.
yeah, the funny thing is the Yamabushis, they have the exact same hand attack and multipliers as the Puma Spearmen. The only difference is they have like 50 more hit points.
Yeah, and we don't have a siege tag either, so they don't get counted by Minutemen and whatever. But I don't know what Perez is doing here. He's just sort of posturing around. He's going to lose that TP, and at the end of the day, if he stays in age 2, he's not going to be able to do anything here. The Pumas, Discipline Yumi themselves sort of counter the Coyotes, which are the only counter he's got to them at this point.
With these shadow teched Yamabushi, plenty of Ashigaru, and a lot of Yumi. Eventually, I think he's going to be sending some Yumi upgrades and starting to mass them more in field, because he does have the Japanese consulate and he's constantly training out some Yamabushi, which also serve as some counter cavalry. Yeah, these Coyote runners just have so little in the way of hit points; they just get ripped to shreds by most light infantry units.
And at the same time, these two sort of 2 Ashigaru raids Knuschelbär is doing is just buying him time. There's Naginata's hit points coming in, so that sort of tells me that Knuschelbär is going to train a couple of Naginators, which are in queue. Maybe that may have been a slight mistake of a shipment. At the moment, he's only got 5, so that's roughly the same as a 1
Oh.
Naginata shipment at this point. Maybe he should have sent 5 instead. Oh, no, he's just sent 5 Naginatas is in queue as a shipment. So he's going to have sort of 15, and that's going to be his push.
Yeah, he's already got 5 on the field. Like you said, 5 in queue and 5 represented as a shipment. That's going to be really good. Knuschelbär is doing really well. We saw a raid with the Ashigaru on the fire pit just over here. He's doing well to keep Pérez just constantly on the back foot, constantly guessing, never taking, the big engagement that he would need in order to win this game. And at the end of it, Knuschelbär, oh my god, like that Naginata Rider hit points, the Cav switch is going to be insane. That's like a snuff film. Jeez Louise, once we see that engagement, that's this is brutal. Here it comes, and all of the units converging. The Naginata is just now being revealed to the absolute surprise of Pérez. Pérez still has, he is switching to the attack dance now, but we see the Yamabushis coming in to, oh my gosh, just see them get. I don't even have words for this. This is.
Yeah, it's just demolition, basically, isn't it? As soon as those characters are down, there's nothing stopping the Mace-Hawk just getting demolished, and there's the GG from Pérez. So it's going to go 2-0 to Knuschelbär. And honestly, I didn't expect that. I thought Pérez, being so well versed with Aztec, would have just pushed in a bit earlier, but unfortunately he wasn't able to. And the decisive push he had when Knuschelbär went to the third age just didn't work out for him.
Yeah, so Knuschelbär actually noticing that he himself lost a lot of villagers there, but I still don't think it was of great impact. Again, I think just in the execution of his strategy, Pérez kind of faltered. And it is difficult. I think from this situation, even, at the 7 or 8 minute mark, it was looking pretty difficult for Pérez with the defensive posturing that Knuschelbär was able to establish. But I think Nush played it really, really well. And that was a satisfying game to watch if you're a Japan fan.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're just going to jump into the next game, aren't we? I mean, it is a best of 5 series, so Pérez can still come back. It's not like the best of 3 series earlier. But is it the same map again? Is it Colorado again?
Yes, so it will be Colorado. And Pérez will get the chance to choose any civilization. And Knuschelbär will counterpick. That's a tall order because I think Knuschelbär is quite handy with both the Iroquois and the Sioux. So Pérez has to have in mind.
And Iroquois being on this map in particular, or maps with TPs as a whole, are incredibly strong civ. I mean, probably top 2 of Germany, and Sioux themselves being insanely powerful, really. So we'd have to wait and see what Pérez picks. He might even go with Aztec again. It's just up to him.
I think what Pérez specifically has to have in mind, because there is no reset rules with the WarChiefs Classic, you can basically pick any civilization as many times as you like, provided you aren't forced to counterpick with a TWC civ. He just needs to pick something that I think would perform well against Sioux or against the Iroquois. He might choose, for example, Germany. I'm not entirely sure how that would fare. His Germany would fare against a Canuche, Sioux, or Iro. He could perhaps take Britain, which kind of, again, is kind of even. But on Colorado, I don't know that British would necessarily be the best choice. And it's just, he is kind of caught in a hard place.
I don't know what Pérez means by the easiest civ in the game. Maybe, Russia. Okay. Pérez plays a lot of Russia actually in teams, so he should be pretty decent here. And obviously, Russia, a natural counterpick would be Sioux. Sioux being very strong against Russia, because obviously Russia in H2 tends to struggle a bit with cavalry, their musketeers being pretty crap compared to normal musketeers. So we'll just have to wait and see what Knuschelbär picks. But obviously, Iroquois here are also pretty strong.
Yeah, I might hazard Canuche would probably go with the Sioux here. Like you mentioned, their cavalry units are just so devastating to the Russian infantry, especially if you're able to actually get up to the Fortress Age and then start sending shipments like 5 Axe Rider, 5 Rifle Rider. Those perform really well against Russia. Iroquois versus Russia is a pretty fair matchup. So I wouldn't expect Knusch to actually take that. I wouldn't think that would provide him the best advantage, but you never know. Maybe we do see that from him.
I mean, he could pick Aztec as well, but there's Sue coming out anyway. So yeah, as you said, Sue is sort of the pick you normally see. It gives you the biggest advantage, and Russia just have a pretty hard time not having goons, not in A3 except from the church shipment, and relying on sort of worse units in terms of infantry. Maybe you can count halberdiers as good against Sue, but I'm not entirely sure about that.
So I think Noosh, he greened up, and then he ungreened up, and then Pérez greened up, and then also ungreened up when he noticed Knusch ungreened up. But now we're...
Yeah, so Perez is there. You go. Perez is loading in. There you go.
So this will represent Game 3 in our Best of 5 series between Knuschelbär and Pérez, part of the round of 32 of the ESOC WarChiefs Classic, second iteration. Up 2-0, Knuschelbär is leading the series, and he is standing on match point. The map is ESOC Colorado, with our leader of the series, Knusch, color green. To the west of the map, playing as the Sioux. That was his counter pick to Pérez, who's playing to the east side of the map in the color blue as Russia.
Yeah, and it's a wood start, so I think that sort of favors Sue here. Although Russia getting 50 food and base, which is obviously a very nice treasure. But yeah, Sue's probably going to chop for TP, put it down. And yeah, he's chopping already. So he's going to get a TP down quickly. And maybe he'll find one of the nicer wood treasures, which 110 wood does spawn on this map, which is basically one of the best treasures in the game, with 3 Cougars guarding it. But at the same time, by the looks of it, Russia's just going to do what he normally does and one house and just pump out villages.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the 100 wood is actually pretty unfortunate for Pérez here. He's probably not going to be able to make something of that. You know, you mentioned the 110 wood treasure. There it is right there. And if Pérez is really lucky, he'll be able to scout it and not get it stolen by the Sioux war chief. That would enable him to build a trading post of his own, but even as Russia, getting an early trading post isn't a terrible effect. In fact, I might actually prefer it if he saved that wood for an early blockhouse and just went for basically a doggone all-in rush against the Sioux player. I think that would serve for his best chance to win this particular game. Instead, he is going for the 150 coin treasure, which is still a really good treasure. But like I was saying earlier, you know, just the ability for Knuschelbär to get that early trading post is going to be so impactful. Basically, even if it were like a 100 coin start, that would have been way to the favor of the Russia player because it prevents that early trading post, even though the Russian player isn't able to make anything of the early 100 coin either. Yeah.
Yeah, so as you said, basically 100 would being the worst start with Russia. Food start being the preferred start, and coin start being even more so in favor of Russia over Sioux. But he does find 110 wood, but at the same time, Knuschelbär's too big to fail. Explorer is right next to him, but he's walking the wrong way, and he hasn't scouted it. So this is this is pretty important here.
So it does seem as though Pérez is actually going to get away with this creep safely and securely. I wonder where Knuschelbär's explorer is going. I would have figured he maybe would want to go in this direction to scout out maybe his future hunts, but it's Colorado. You always know where your hunts are going to be. They spawn in the exact same locations every game. Instead, I think he's going to this treasure down by the south side. This looks like 95 wood right there, and a grizzly bear.
Yeah, 95 wood, and he's still got that rifleman there to just to do damage at range. So he's going to take that incredibly easily. Obviously, the Russian explorer isn't as fast, so he can't get down there. But as you said, Pérez now has the wood to get a trading burst if he wants to. But by the looks of it, he's keeping those calls of woods on the floor. and he's probably just going to use it for a quicker blockhouse. Perez actually going to have basically exactly enough of a blockhouse as soon as he hits the age up button.
There we go. Enough food in queue for Perez. A pretty good age up time. Queued in at 3 minutes and 5 seconds. And like I was calling earlier, I really hope for Perez goes for a very aggressive build order. Not necessarily all in, but something aggressive. Something to keep Knuschelbär on his toes. And we see 3 villagers going forward. Like you mentioned, Blockhouse probably in the works.
Yeah, he's just going to come forward here. He's chopping more wood for some reason. He should already have enough. Oh, it's because he's going for a market as well, which sort of bolsters his economy. But he's going to put the blockhouse down right away. On this map, you can get quite close to your opponent's base, actually. I mean, if you just look at where the villagers are, they're just over one screen away from the TC. So that's really aggressive, actually. But he is going to get spotted more than likely by this grizzly bear and the rifleman from Knuschelbär.
Yeah, so they are en route to the middle of the map, and that is exactly where Perez has placed his forward blockhouse. So it is going to get scouted. And what Knuschelbär will do with that information? Well, obviously, he knows some aggressive plays coming out, but I think he could have probably anticipated that blind either way. We do see him chopping a lot of wood now. Seems like it's probably going to be a defensive war hut in the back of his base. I would expect right there, right tucked in behind the town center and right near the coin mine. But he's going to have to do a good job herding in that next bighorn sheep hunt. Because currently he's starting to run out of food directly under his town center, and that could prove to be problematic.
Yeah, and Perez is actually about 15 seconds, 20 seconds ahead of Knuschelbär. So he's going to get up quicker. He's going to get that 5. Okay, they're talking about the scout at the bottom, which unfortunately for Perez he didn't get, and Knuschelbär got instead. But as I was saying, he's going to get about 5 Cometk shipment out and the 5 musketeers just pushing forward, even more quickly than he really should be able to. Oh, that scout is going to scout the musketeers, and Perez is and Knuschelbär's now up. And as you said, the war hut's going up in the back of the base.
Yeah, that scout is going to be insanely impactful. If Perez were just a little bit luckier and maybe was able to even preserve that explore, he's definitely going to need to pick it up at some point in the game, because the longer this native scout is alive, the harder and harder it is going to be for Perez to make good on his colonial pressure. It's just going to give away so much information to Knuschelbär, the positions of where Perez's units are at all times. That's going to inform him how many units he wants to make before he can, perhaps go up to the fortress age comfortably. It's really impactful. So I think Perez is going to have to pay a lot of attention and send, some units to go revive that explorer and scout out the location of this stealth native scout if he wants to come away from this game with a victory.
Yeah, and 700 coin. I think it's an interesting shipment here. Obviously, as you were saying, rushing Sue in this format would probably be slightly better. And now, but Sue's allowed to get these shipments out like 700 wood, which is just really powerful. I mean, Seaton bows obviously are wood themselves, and 6 Seaton bows you can also send, but 700 wood being more efficient. And now he's just going to get more and more food, and with his teepees and hunting dogs in, he's collecting at a rate which is probably comparable to Russia with hunting dogs. And now the 5 Cossacks are coming in with 15 musketeers, but is this really that powerful of a push when Sue can just call on Seaton bows? There's 10, and probably Axe Riders in queue from the shipment point.
Yeah, I actually saw Knuschelbär. He was sitting on a shipment for a little bit, that trading post having enabled him to get basically 3 rolling shipments in the colonial age. I think what might be in queue for him is probably 4 Axe Riders, which is going to help him hold this pressure. Basically, what he needs to focus down is these Cossacks with this town center fire. Well, he's not using the town center fire at the moment. The Cossacks represent the biggest threat because, once the Cossacks are out of the way, with all these Seaton bows, the Musketeers aren't going to be able to do squat. Yeah, there you go. The 4X Rider shipment coming in to reinforce, and Perez is going to be forced away. Or actually choosing to take the engagement.
Yeah, and if Perez has got 4 there's 3 Axe Riders. It's going to be the push from Knuschelbär. 2 Cossacks are going to go down here with basically nothing. and Perez has to get back, and Musketeers are sort of useless. Obviously, they're good against the Axe Riders, but against the Seaton Bows, they just get dissolved, basically.
Knuschelbär has gotten away with a very, very economic build order. 700 wood, 5 villagers. He has another shipment on the way. He has both hunting dogs and placer mines and 4 economic TPs in base. His gathering rate is insane, and although, it seems like the economies are even, I would say Knuschelbär is a little bit favored at the moment. We do see, let's see. So, Pérez, the Russian player, does have steel traps. That's pretty good. But I don't think that the quality of the Russian units, even though Pérez's economy is slightly better at this stage, technically, I don't think it's going to be very meaningful because the quality of the Russian units is not going to be able to create a convincing lead for Pérez in order to take a convincing, colonial engagement.
Although saying that, the longer this plays out in the colonial age, probably better for Perez it would be. Although this push is actually pretty huge here. Seaton Bows, War Clubs, and but even some Bow Riders in there. I'm just going to push on this blockhouse. Obviously, the blockhouse does give a bit of protection, but Musketeers and these Sea Cossacks aren't going to be able to really do much against, especially with Seaton Bows. I mean, the Seaton Bows are just so strong versus Musketeers.
Very interesting engagement. We see the war clubs being placed into cover mode, pretty interesting, and even the grizzly bears forward to sponge some damage. Just that Seaton Bow's putting in so much DPS on these musketeers, which they perform very well against. A lot of the axe riders for Pérez still alive, and as this musketeer mass starts to dwindle, once these axe riders are able to connect, just the positioning of the musketeers is not going to allow them to get into good melee contact with the axe riders. 13 Strelitz is going to come in, but still, so many axe riders left alive. All the musketeers getting ripped to shreds, and oof.
If there was a batch of musketeers in queue, of which there actually is, and they pop out just now, but they're just going to get demolished again by these Seaton Bows. Seaton Bows doing so much damage, and the Strelitz not really going to do anything against the axe riders at all. And Perez actually was ahead on eco, not ahead on score there for a while, but now his blockhouse is going to go down. He basically loses a hunt, and I think Perez is resigning because he's just got a lot of. Oh, maybe not. Maybe
Yeah, right. And this is very interesting. Pérez actually has Fortress Age in queue. Kind of peculiar. He's going to lose this forward blockhouse. He does have a blockhouse in construction, and that is going to get up in base. But what is he necessarily going to be able to do in the Fortress Age now that he's 40 units down? 40 pretty quality units. These Sioux units are pretty good in Colonial Age. What is he going to be able to do? He's not going to be able to gather resources. Pressure coming in from Knuschelbär towards the north side, going to garrison some villagers. No hunts left in base for Pérez. Or rather, there's 3 dead bighorns. Those aren't going to last for very long. He is up to the Fortress Age. But what is in the cards for him that could, get him out of this situation? It's very curious.
Yeah, there's not really many cards which you can send here. Obviously, 5 cavalry archers is quite a strong card, but it's just worse than 5 dragoons. And there are still a number of Seaton Bows alive, and Bow Riders obviously do trade quite well against them. If he could get the coin from Manchus, he would be in a fine spot, I believe, but he's not going to be able to do that anytime soon. So yeah, all those strats are now going down, and the blockhouse he does have isn't producing any units. He does have still some villagers in queue, which is obviously quite good, but he's just getting harassed here, and he doesn't even have a hunt he can go to.
Yeah, I think it was an interesting play from Pérez, and I don't necessarily think it was bad, but just given that there was the timing push from Knusch, I just don't think it was the right time to invest in the age up. He probably had to commit to colonial pressure, even if that wasn't to his late game or strategy. And now Knuschelbär, constant pressure in Pérez's base, forcing the garrison. There are no hunts left for Pérez, no safe hunts. And Knuschelbär is about to hit Fortress himself.
Yeah, exactly. And it's getting closer and closer to that Sue Big button, which is what you sort of need to worry about here. Sue being with that big button incredibly powerful. It's 6 dog soldiers at 15 minutes, and that just overpowers most of Russia's army. He has got a stable up, which I assume he's going to be producing cavalry archers in, but he doesn't have any food. He has to walk all these villagers up the top here, and if they get caught at all by the bow riders or anything, he's just going to get demolished.
It's Hunt in a very awkward location. He would need to build a blockhouse in order to secure that. Oh my god, just look at them all stand idle as they were tasked to that one bighorn. Now just, yeah, going for it, just gonna gather all coin. He is still technically an economic lead. There are a lot of Russian villagers on the field. Sending some more forward to try to get this hunt, I suppose, or just walking around, taking a stroll around the block. There's very nice scenery in Colorado.
Yeah, he's going for Manchu, almost definitely. I mean, he's stacking 750 coin. But a lot of these villagers might get caught up here.
Oh. Oh no. Oh, poor Pérez. And it's going to be so long before those Manchus are able to arrive. He does have the shipment, but that's going to be 60 seconds for the Manchus to be shipped from the Russian home city.
Seconds. It's 90 seconds for merc shipments. A lot longer. But yeah, as you said, these villagers are all going to go down. He is still actually equal on eco somehow. And he does have a blockhouse down at the bottom here. But just imagine if a blockhouse was at the top instead. It would just... Oh, this is nasty. Another couple of villagers are going to go down.
Poor Pérez.
Although,
you know,
saying that, there actually are no Wakinas out for Pérez. So if those Manchu come in, they're going to be pretty scary.
Perhaps, but I think the veteran upgrades should be coming. Oh my gosh, actually, I was completely wrong. Look at Knuschelbär's distribution. This is pretty zany.
Oh, he's going industrial, yeah.
Yeah.
And industrial's, he also sent 1,000 wood, so he's been sending incredibly greedy shipments. His back row's a little bit off, but I don't think that really matters too much here. He's also going to pick up a bear cub of all things, which is pretty useless. But there's a Manchu, but Manchu against industrial age cavalry archers. I mean, they don't even trade. Bow riders there, oh, not cavalry archers. Bow riders there don't even trade too badly against them.
Yeah, you know, I was figuring Knuschelbär was probably going to go for a big H3 mass of veteran bow riders because those would be very difficult for the Russian player to counter in low numbers. Of course, the Manchus wouldn't perform particularly well against 20 to 25 veteran bow riders with the Sioux WarChief, or perhaps even cavalry combat or something like that. But Knuschelbär is going to go up. That does give a small, time for Pérez to be able to pressure him, but I don't think Pérez is at all expecting the industrial age up from the Sioux player, which is really intelligent from Knusch. It's just a really excellent strategy. He's dealt so much damage. Pérez is never going to feel safe walking out of his base. He's going to want to, mass up his Russian military, his Russian units that would full-on counter a big bow rider mass or anything that Knusch might try to field in H3. But it's not going to work because Knusch is going to be, again, at a big tech advantage.
Yeah, the Sioux shipments in the next stage are actually really impressive as well. 18 Wakinas is a pretty insane shipment if you think about it. It's basically double the Fortress Age shipment. And also there's that command skill upgrade, which I believe is 10% damage on all your units when only all of the WarChiefs, so that's pretty powerful. And again, the big button is just so much more powerful when you have the industrial edge because the units do shadow tech.
That's absolutely true. Dog soldiers, he can even dance for dog soldiers if he likes. He's expecting the big button, but boom, look at that, industrially typed right before Knusch hit industrial. So no big button for the time being.
Yeah, and these bow riders is just going to be insane when it. Actually, I don't think I've ever seen elite bow like the next level of bow riders in a casted game before. Normally, the game just ends at 15 minutes or so, but obviously, Sue's going industrial now, and he's just going to pump out villagers. He's got two town centers working, so Russia needs to push here, but they can't really push, obviously. There's a lot of cavalry archers. And, the Wakinas popping, and they have champion Wakinas as well. Wow. So they're just going to demolish these Manchus.
Yeah, just look at the entire mass get ripped to shreds. Those are quality units, but it's not going to be enough. And that is 3-0. The series cleaned up by Knuschelbär. A really solid performance from Knusch. I don't think Pérez played it mechanically poorly. It's just, slight strategic disadvantages accumulating, and really great execution from Knusch. Um, that'll be the series.
Oh. Yeah, and I think well played by both players. Maybe Perez misplaying slightly on apparently the first game he sent 600 wood by accident or something. I don't know, but I mean, well played by both players. Knuschelbär obviously being the highest seed, so it's somewhat to be expected.